Hey, what's going on, guys? This is a look at Fort de Vaux, then and now. Give you guys some images I've looked around on the internet to find that give you a little bit of a comparison to what they did in recreating Fort de Vaux in Battlefield 1. So I find these things pretty interesting, just to get a little look at how they look. I think it's pretty incredible when I see these recreations of real life images of anything that are recreated in the video game. So I like to show them and give my brief appreciation on them. Now, for starters, this is an image that you don't see at all when you're playing Fort de Vaux on Battlefield 1, but you do see when you do play Verdun Heights. But I did want to point this out, that this was used in the fort. We just don't see it because obviously we're playing inside the fort, and this is obviously going to be used when you're trying to defend people coming from the outside in. So you do see that style gameplay used in Verdun Heights. In the instance of Fort Verdun, of course, you don't see this, but it is pretty cool to see the real life version of it as it compares as well to what we have seen in Battlefield 1. So here's another interesting view right here of one of the barracks. As you can see, it's somewhat similar. It contains the same type of style there of the double-bedded bunk beds that we got going on there. Of course, it's a little bit more messed up in my gameplay here, considering that it's kind of real-time war zone, and I'm sure it wasn't as clean as it was either back in that day either. As you can see, this picture's been taken years afterwards, but it's pretty cool to see. I would say more of an inspirational take on it. Of course, I don't have detailed notes from the developers, and I'm just kind of going throughout the internet trying to just find some stuff here that would give some type of comparison. So it's just kind of cool to see that and see how it relates to the actual gameplay itself, and see that there is a pretty good connection that from what I'm seeing. Which, by the way, if you really want to confuse the enemy team, you can just throw a stick of dynamite up by that wall, run outside the room, and right before you enter the next room, you can blow up the stick of dynamite, confuse the enemy team, and then... So I thought this little thing right here was pretty cool that I found on Google Images. It's a 360 view of this area in the fort, and as you can read here, it says communicating with the outside world. So when I read that, I was like, that's kind of interesting. So I just started to look around, and as I turned the camera over to the left a little bit, there it is. It's a little piece of of an image of a pigeon just standing right there. So I'm assuming it's probably where they kept the pigeons at, or something along the lines of that right there. And I found that this is pretty cool just to find that right there, and to see it's connected in with the concept of communicating with the outside world. Because from a 21st century mindset, the first thing you're thinking is still like a phone, and it's still amazing to think that back then that's what they were operating with and how effective it was in doing so. So this is pretty cool and something I wanted to point out. When you see all of those shells blast into the fort, that was actually what was taking place during the time when the Germans were trying to capture the fort. They actually were trying to bombard it with certain shells, and they were having a hard time in doing that. However, though, they were eventually able to destroy the turrets that the French were using, and in response to not having any artillery fire, the Germans were able then to approach and make an assault onto the fort, which by doing so they were able to run out the French army by pushing them inwards into the fort themselves, first by using flame troopers, and then after a couple days of infighting where they were using things like bayonets and all of your close range weapons that you would need to fight in a basically close quarters battle, the fort was eventually taken over by the Germans. They didn't stay in it for too long. They tried to the Germans tried to hold the fort and use it for shelter, but the life inside the fort was just not possible because of the lack of access to water. So because of that, they eventually left the fort, even after withstanding a barrage of artillery fire afterwards from the French, who were trying to recapture the fort from the Germans for a little bit of time there. So yeah, it's pretty interesting to see how well the fort actually like handled all the artillery fire, not only from the Germans but the French as well too. That's basically it, guys. Just kind of wanted to give you this little view on the fort, how it looked then and now, and I want to leave you guys off with what it looks like now. As you can see, it's just so much more lush, like it's complete night and day, with all the greenery and the trees and everything around it. Unlike how it was, a little over 100 years ago, just to see, just a complete desolation, and now what it is now, just kind of this really lush area of just full greenery and trees and everything. So I'll leave you off with these images here, and I have a little brighter side than all the chaos and hell that war brings, and let you see the green on the other side there. Thanks again for watching, guys. This is Livin', and I'm out.